I saw Make Way for Tomorrow at Paramount in the 60s when Jerry Lewis was the king of Hollywood and he allowed me to run any movie I wanted at Paramount. So I ran 85 films until he said, will you hold it? You've run every picture in the vault. I saw Make Way for Tomorrow in nitrate. It was a quite striking print. A couple of years after I saw it, I was having dinner with Orson Welles and I said, have you ever seen Make Way for Tomorrow? He said, oh my God, that's the saddest movie ever made. It would make a stone cry. He loved it, and nobody went. One of my favorite stories about that film is that the same year that he made Make Way for Tomorrow, Leo McCarey won Best Director from the Academy for The Awful Truth, and he went up to receive the award, and his speech was, I want to thank the Academy for this wonderful award, but you gave it to me for the wrong picture. And Make Way for Tomorrow was always one of his favorites. I think it was right up there. During his life, Leo McCarey was one of the most famous directors in America and the world. His name was above the title, like Frank Capra and Hitchcock and very few others. He was most famous for comedies with a touch of drama, like Going My Way and The Bells of St. Mary's and An Affair to Remember. Those were his most popular films, I suppose. He worked with virtually every comedian on the screen, starting out with Laurel and Hardy, whom it was his idea to combine into a team. And he directed virtually all their best stuff, either wrote, supervised, or directed all their best stuff, which is all the silent stuff that nobody's seen anymore, but it is hysterically funny. So that was the start of Leo McCarey, who began in life as a lawyer and was such a bad lawyer, he said, that he got chased out of the courtroom and kept running till he got to Hollywood and then somehow fell into work with Hal Roach and then had the idea to combine Laurel and Hardy and directed Charlie Chase comedies too, which were very funny, sort of married couple comedies. And in the 30s, he worked with Eddie Cantor, with W.C. Fields, with the Marx Brothers, did the Marx Brothers' best film, Duck Soup, worked with Mae West, who he said when she was angry, hissed like a snake. I said, well, how was she with you? He said she was hissing all the time. He also directed one of the classic comedies of the 30s, Ruggles of Red Gap, with Charles Laughton giving a great performance as Ruggles. It's, again, a comedy, is wildly funny and then gets rather touching at the end, as usual. He had a great way of working. He was very unusual in how he worked. If he'd get stumped on something, he'd go and play the piano. There was a piano on the set, and he'd go and play the piano for a while until he had an idea of what to do, and then he'd stop playing the piano, and then he'd get the actors together and improvise, talk through an improvisation. And then once they'd improvised the scene, no, we won't do that line. No, yes, let's do that. Yes, we won't do that. They'd write it out, and that's what they'd do. Which threw some people. Cary Grant, who really, Leo McCarey made Cary Grant a star in The Awful Truth. And Cary Grant was so thrown by this technique of his that he asked to quit the picture, which was not a happy event. But they ended up doing 3 more pictures together. He was very much an actor's director. He got them to loosen up and be unafraid. I think that's what he did with Cary Grant. He kind of gave him his space and his voice, found himself. Garson Kanin used to say that Cary Grant, when he did The Awful Truth, was doing Leo McCarey, which is very possible. Actors often imitate their director, if the director's worth imitating.
OLST is for the tears she shed to say.
His visual style wasn't anything particularly dynamic or that interesting, but the sense of freshness and the sense of improvisation, that this is something that's just happening, is what distinguishes his pictures, not only in the 30s and the 40s, but even the Laurel and Hardy pictures in the 20s.
Hope I don't get Harvey. Oh, hello, Harvey.
He had a mischievous sense of humor and understood the frivolousness that people often have, and he didn't condemn people. The darkest film he made, I guess, was Make Way for Tomorrow, and even in that film, he doesn't really judge the children. His father was a boxing promoter, a well-known boxing promoter, And he died, and they had been very close. And I think he had a close relationship with his mother as well. And that's what decided him to make a film about older people. And it's one of the few films made about old age. It invokes the Bible in the opening credits, which says, "Honor thy mother and father." We live, unfortunately, in a society that's even worse now than it was when Leo McCarey made this picture. The idea of honoring the aged for their wisdom and their experience is not something that we do in this country or in most countries, but particularly not in America, where what's fashionable, what's new, what's hot, what's it, what's in, is what it's all about. And a film like Make Way for Tomorrow is not a film that goes with the tempo of the times, even less now than it did in the 30s. One of the reasons it's a forgotten film is that people are not interested in old age. The public doesn't flock to see films about old age. One that was popular was On Golden Pond, but it was a very sentimentalized version of it. It's interesting that both Victor Moore and Beulah Bondi were considerably younger than they were playing in the picture, like 20 years younger. And they had to have quite heavy makeup to achieve the 70s that they're supposed to be.
We went to a matinee one day.
Oh, so we did.
It shows you how amazing black and white is in terms of makeup. You could get away with so much more. You do that in color and it's hell. Very, very hard to make it believable. But in black and white, you could cover the multitude of sins. And the acting is superb. I mean, they did a brilliant job of playing older without seeming to be playing older. The fact that Victor Moore was a comedian and worked in vaudeville is, at first glance, maybe a strange idea to cast him in that part, but not really, because Leo McCarey knew, as we all do in show business, that if you can play comedy, you can play anything. Comedy is tougher than drama, much, because if you don't get the laugh, you find out right away it's called sudden death.